folks, Rich here. Welcome back to the RCINFORMER YouTube channel. Today's video, I have a long-awaited upgrade to the FMS Super Scorpion. This is something that I've wanted to do for the longest time, but just haven't had the time to sit down and do it. But we're going to get it done today and show you how to do it. We're going to take the FMS 90mm 6-cell powered Scorpion, Super Scorpion, and we are going to convert it using to 8S using FMS's 90mm Pro Series metal fan, and we're going to upgrade the ESC to 120 amp, which is FMS's 8S ESC as well. So we're also going to throw spark arrestors in there. I'm going to set it up so you can run it on a single 8S pack, okay, and also so it can be run on 2 4-cell packs to make it easy on everybody. I'm going to make a Y harness, show you how to do it. We're going to upgrade the battery floor. We're going to do all that stuff and get it going for you all. Now, the Super Scorpion is already a killer airplane. This is my first ever and only Super Scorpion from the videos I made a few years back. Those are in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. I'll put links to that so you guys can see how well it flies and how fast it actually is on 6S. But you know, when light speed is too slow, you know, you got to go right to ludicrous speed, and I've been wanting to upgrade this thing to an 8S much more powerful system because the battery compartment can handle it. It's a big space. The airplane glides so well with 6S, it can definitely should be able to handle the weight just fine. And with the extra power of 8S, it should really boost it quite nicely. So I'm going to put links for all the equipment I use in the description below. So if you guys want to know where to get the stuff from, it will be right underneath there. So anyway, without further ado, let me get on to this. Please, if you guys like what you see here, like and subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell. If you hit that like button, that helps support our channel as well. And using our links definitely helps out. So anyway, without further delay, let's get everything out of the box. Let's get the wings off this thing first, and we'll get the 8S fan installed, and here we go. With the wings off the airplane, it's much easier to maneuver this and pretty much to get the job done here. One thing you do want to do is get your canopy off, and immediately, right away, just remove your throttle wire right here out of your receiver. I went ahead and pulled my receiver off the wall. And then your receiver wire, of course, and your main battery wire, those are going to get pulled through when we get the fan, you know, out of place. So it's always a good idea to keep your canopy on the airplane. We'll go ahead and we'll flip this upside down so we can get a real good view of the fan hatch area. And then we're just going to get rid of this thing. We're just going to open it up, take this thing out. We'll see how quick, how easy it is to get this out of here. 2 screws, okay, we can grab this and pull these out. These are little skids, so if you get a little too low to the ground, it kind of protects your linkages from getting dinged up here. So, and that's it. Your fan's exposed. This is the original plastic fan. I'll go ahead and zoom in on that just a little bit. And then we've got 4 screws to remove here as well. So we'll get those out of place. Try and do this as best I can to real time, so everybody can kind of get the gist of kind of how simple it is. And it's actually pretty quick to do. The only tough part about this thing is that the wires are a little short on this thing. So when we pull this out, we're going to kind of pull it up here, and then the speed controller is going to kind of, as we pull up on this thing, what's going to happen is you'll see here the wires are very short. There's a plastic piece right in there that holds the speed controller down, and you're going to pull up on that because again the wires are a little short, and we're going to just sort of pull, and that's okay because we have to get that plastic piece. That's just the keeper that holds the speed controller in place. And we got to get that up anyway, and then we're going to like foam tack it back down into place. So once we've got this kind of where we can see it here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull these wires off just one at a time. I actually taped them last time I put this together. That's right. So I'm going to pull the tape off at each lead and just get these leads off. And it's pretty simple to do this. In fact, I'm just going to sort of pull on them, and I think that'll kind of get the tape off. Or I'll have to get a hobby knife and get on in there and do that. So let me go ahead and pull those off of there with a knife. Let's see if I got one here. In fact, I'm just going to cut pretty much right through those here. Let me get this right here, and that should be easy enough to get off. And we'll just kind of cut through them that way. There we go. That one's off. The reason I have this white stuff on here is because that plastic piece in there came off the other day, and it was actually scraping as this thing was kind of spinning around. So, and then once I get this out of here, once this is all cut, then what I'll do is I'll be able to get in to the speed controller, and we'll just slide that all out of there. Let me see if I cut enough of that, and let's see, we'll pull that out, and there we go. That's the fan out of place, you know, the stock fan. This is still a good fan that I can put into something. I can tell that that motor doesn't nearly have as much bite on the magnets, you can feel, as the new one we're going to put in there. But you can see down in here what it looks like. And again, I just pulled that plastic piece up, which I just glued down at the last event because it actually had come off on me. And then we're going to grab that speed controller and very carefully pull it through. And if we have a hard time getting it through, I'll have to go look at the other end and see. It looks like something is hanging it up there. Okay, after pulling on it for just a little bit, I noticed on the other end of this thing also, one other connection I forgot is there actually is a separate BEC on this thing. So you got to pull this out of the receiver too. I kind of forgot about that. And then this BEC was actually Velcroed, you know, to the wall. So, and then we'll get a separate BEC. We'll have to solder this onto the new speed controller. So, but that's what this whole thing looks like coming out of there. It's pretty simple. Again, you just got to remember, take your throttle line off, take your separate BEC line off. And again, I wasn't sure, I didn't remember that was there. But now once you have this out, this is still a good speed controller that you can pretty much use in something else. So let's go ahead and get the new stuff, and we'll get it installed and in place. Before we get into the full installation, we're going to do a little bit of unbox therapy of this really nice FMS 90mm Pro metal fan. It says right here 8S. We're going to take a look at some of the differences of these two fans and the speed controllers and see really what differences there are that I'm discovering as I'm kind of messing around with putting this thing in place. Sometimes things drop in, sometimes they don't. And I went ahead and I pulled this out already, did a little test fit ahead of time so I can be a little more prepared to brief you guys. This thing is fantastic. This thing is beautiful. Look at that thing. And you can tell by spinning it that the magnets are really, really tight. So it's got a metal spinner cone. It's got really nice blades. Look at those things shining. And it's definitely heavier. It's got a monster motor in this thing. And when we make a comparison of the two of these things, you can see some of the differences right off the bat. I went ahead and weighed them. So you can see the original fan is 331 grams. The new one is 560. So now that weight is actually not going to be a bad thing really necessarily, because it's going to help counteract heavier batteries. So if we want to run a heavier battery, now I'm discovering, you know, we might even be able to go 6,000 on the battery packs and carry quite a bit more. So a couple things about the old fan too and the new fan. The difference is that they also have the bolt pattern's the same. So they're going to plug in exactly the same. But the difference is you can see where the wires exit. These wires exit from the bottom. These exit from the back like most fans. So what we're going to end up doing is doing a little carving kind of right down in here so those wires can kind of exit out. And then this one is actually an outrunner. It's really interesting. This plane flew fantastic with this fan, and this fan is super lightweight plastic and has this little tiny kind of peanut motor in there. It's an outrunner, as you can see, the original one. And as I'm reading it, it's a 3546 1900 kV, really kind of small motor. But man, it pulls this thing along. This white stuff, again, that came from that piece of plastic that had come off on me the other day. And it actually is scraping right off. There was no real damage to this spinner, so other than just a little bit of this plastic Lexan just got on here. So this will be usable later. In fact, the whole powertrain, you know, I'll be able to use this on another plane if I want, so I'll kind of hang on to this. And this cone just kind of snaps on and kind of snaps off this thing, but you can see the difference in this versus the new one. The new motor is just huge. I mean, it's heavy, but it's huge. You can see the power on it, or the size on it. It's a 4075 1500 kV, and it is a whopping in-runner motor. I mean, it's just ridiculous how massive this is, how precise it is, and how, man, these magnets, the other one just spins around. This one, the magnets are super tight. So we're looking at a weight increase, but we're probably looking at a massive power increase for this plane as well. So again, a little up on the weight, but probably going to have the power to spare. And then we're also going to be looking here at the new speed controller. This is what we're going to run in here. and we'll talk about the spark arrestor part of it later. This is a little bit of a capacitor, I guess, probably for the receiver, maybe to prevent brownouts, that kind of thing, but I don't know if I'll use that or not. But let's take a look at this. The size difference of this speed controller is unreal. This is very tiny. Okay, it's very small for a 120, and you can see right here it is 3 to 8 cell LIPOs can go in there. So 120 amp, very small speed controller. Everything is a plug-in fit. Okay, and one of the things I'm going to have to do is do a test run of this to make sure that I have the correct color, correct wire going in here. So as I plug the 3 of these in here, we want to make sure that it's spinning the right way before I install this in there, because if I got it going backwards, I got to take everything out again, so it's all going to go in there. Another couple things to note, and you can compare these powertrains with this. You can see where this speed controller is going to sort of fit in relation to the fan with the length of the wires. You just kind of have to measure and see where everything's going to go. It should fit nicely down in there, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this actually might fit in better, because the old wires, if you look at the old powertrain, and another thing I'm going to have to do is solder a BEC. I'll probably leave this as is, because I may use this in a different plane rather than mess with this. I'll grab another BEC, okay, and I'll solder it probably onto the main wires here. But just to kind of compare, you know, both of these powertrains, and this is my first time sort of testing this out and doing this. And I'm going to plug these right back in. And before, when I was cutting these and getting it out, all I was doing was actually cutting the Scotch tape, okay, that was between the two. So I didn't really cut anything important. All I did was cut the Scotch tape there. So I'm going to put these back in and take a look at this, because I want to compare both of these powertrains and see how they fit in there, and where the speed controller is going to be sort of in relation, okay, to the way the old one was in there. And you can see the speed controller is going to be in a little bit of a different position, which I think will work okay. I won't know till I actually get it in there. But the nice thing is the new speed controller, look how much smaller it is compared to the old one. The old one was gigantic, and it does have a space that it fits in there. And of course, somebody's got to call me right now while I'm doing that. You know, this will fit in much, much easier, okay, than this one will, but it's also farther back. So I'll play with that as we get that whole thing in. But there's your comparison of what your two powertrains look like. I think we'll have plenty of wire, but as we get into it a little bit more, we'll talk more about what I have to modify and what I have to change to get this whole thing to fit well. Now, before going with the full installation of this thing, you do want to make sure that your fan is running in the proper direction. And I already did it and set it up, and I had to reverse, you know, 2 of the wires already. And another thing to note too is that we have a 4th wire on this this ESC, okay, and this is a reverse wire. So we might mess with this later for reverse thrust. We may or may not. But anyway, I got it all wired up. Something else to note too is if you want to go with a separate BEC, like I said before, is I might put this one on there or get another one, but keep in mind the one that comes with this, the input voltage on it is only up to 25 volts. So this one will only handle 6S of power input, so we can't actually use this one. So if I use a separate BEC, which I'll decide on that later, you got to get one that will handle 8S input into it. So anyway, in the meantime, everything is set up here. I went ahead and I plugged my BEC wire into the throttle channel, and we're going to go ahead and boot this up with an 8S pack. So we went ahead and did this already. I'm just going to kind of walk through it and just show you the process of it. Plug it in, let it go ahead and boot up, which it boots up just fine. And then when I initially powered this thing up, the fan was going the wrong way. So, but now I went ahead and I reversed 2 of the wires, and in order to make this get the polarity, you know, correct, or make sure that if I ever have to take it off again, that I actually have them marked. So what I'm going to do is unplug this, and what I did is I took a small piece of heat shrink tubing. This is how I do my stuff. I wrapped a little bit of red around this one, and I wrapped a little yellow around this one. So anytime I have to plug or unplug these in, I know exactly which one goes into which one, because these were all black, and it's hard to tell which one they are unless you label them somehow. So that's really all I did, was just label them. So now I have the fan turning in the proper direction, and we're ready to completely install this thing. It's pretty sweet actually how tight this fan is. I'm just going to reboot it because I didn't have my my wire plugged all the way into the receiver properly. but it boots up fine now, and we'll go ahead and kind of just get an idea of how nice that fan is. It's nice and smooth. I don't want to power it up too much when it's in your hands. It's really not a good idea to do that, but anyway, it works beautifully. It's set up. We now know our polarity is correct and everything, and we're ready to go ahead and install this. We're going to get a go-get-em wire, stick them up through here, and then get the fan in through the back and figure out what we got to carve in the back to make this thing fit. After test fitting the fan in place, you can see here I have it fully installed, and that's what allowed me, as I put it in, figure out what needs to be trimmed and so forth. It basically is a drop-in fit with the exception of the lip. The lip curve right here on the foam doesn't quite match this curve, so it just needed a little bit of sanding. So using a sanding bar, which is actually just all I used was a carbon rod with a little bit of sticky back sandpaper on it, and just went around this edge a little bit, and you do that enough, and you do it also on the inside edge, which I'll show you here, so that when you put this down in place, that's why I say it's almost a drop-in fit, so it actually flush mounts and it goes into place and you can put those two screws back on. So again, nearly a drop-in fit, also with the exception of the wire channels, which I'm going to show you right here. So as I back out here on the zoom, we'll lift up the airplane, and I did the same thing in the tube here, as you could see. You could see those wires right there. Right at the bottom, where the wires go through, I cut a little channel there, and I'm going to pull the fan out and show you that exactly how that goes into place. So one channel there for the wires, trim your fan lip area, and that's really about it, folks. That's about all you have to do to get this to fit right in. So and then we can do the go-get-em wires and put this whole thing in there. But you do have to do a couple of test fitting runs of this thing to get it to go into place. The existing screws work just fine for this thing. So let me just back these off of here. You do have to make sure that the lip goes into place right here. You can also see your speed controller is right up front. We're going to put that Lexan plastic thing back into place, which will hold that speed controller hopefully into place fine, and we'll foam tack that down into place. So let me unscrew this, get these out of here, and I'll just very carefully pull this whole thing out so we can see the inside. Now, one thing I did do here as well is I went ahead and I put some tape. I used a 3M blender and taped each one of these wires individually, just one wrapping around it basically so they don't pull out. And then I actually taped them and wired them in sort of a triangular shape so they will fit kind of right along the bottom of this thing, and they'll go right into that notch right on the inside. So, and as we get closer there, you guys can see what that notch looks like. And that notch was simple to make with exactly the same tool that I just had, which you go in from the back side, and you can see right here, if I don't drop this thing, and you just sand that down till you get a nice little notch in there, and you're good to go. So that was the only trimming I had to do. Again, was that right back there, a notch for the wires, and then just right along this edge. And in fact, I used like pretty much the same tool, and just kind of went along this edge right here, just to kind of sand down that taper or that curve for the lip. And that was it. So that's all you really have to do to get this thing to fit into place. And you can see we got lots of space kind of down in there. So I'm going to stick a go-get-em wire through the inside, or from the cockpit area up to the front. We're going to attach all those wires, and then we're going to feed them through and let the fan go down into place. And at the same time, we're going to have to take this with a little bit of foam tack, and we'll glue it down into place. So you kind of do that all at once, and then that's really it, and the fan is where it needs to be. I'll see if I can show this to everybody with the go-get-em wire. I'm going to go all the way through the back here, okay, up to the front, and I'm going to make sure that it goes down in through where the receiver, the ESC area is, and you can see that wire as I have it here. I'm going to get it to go right through that area down there and through the front. I'm going to push it out, and then hopefully we will at some point see it on the other side, which there it is. And then we'll go ahead and put this thing back down, and then taking my power train here with this thing the way we kind of set it up here, I'm going to have this side pointing up here, and then let me get this hooked on. We'll get the two of these attached on here, and we'll pull this thing through. Okay, with everything attached here, I'm going to reach over to the underside the cockpit area and start pulling this baby through. Let's see if we can get this kind of done in one shot, little by little. I'm going to look down there and see if I can see it in there. Yep, it looks like it's in there okay. I'm going to have to twist it and turn it as I'm watching it go into place. And I'm just going to pull that thing through and get this whole thing to just settle into place. Now once the fan's in place, all we have to do is just tighten the 4 screws and it's in position there. Now there is the little plastic piece that holds the speed controller in place. I decided to actually fabricate my own just because the position of the speed controller is different. And as you can see, it's here instead of like all the way up there. I could add some extenders on there if I want to, and maybe in the future I'll do that, but for now I'm just going to leave it as is. And I decided to make my own custom Lexan plate, which actually is down in there, and I'm going to actually glue it in, but I'll try to give you all a view of it. It's a plastic Lexan plate that I stuck in there. It's clear Lexan, and if I can get my hand down in there and pull that thing out of there, it's actually in there pretty nice, even though I haven't glued it yet, but you can see right here. It's a little challenging to get it in, and that's the piece that I made. I just fabricated it out of some Lexan, and I'm just going to perimeter glue it around the edge of this thing, of course, with foam tack, because that's pretty much the best thing to do. So, and you can see it's a little challenging to get in there. It's a kind of a tight area to get in there. I'm going to use tools to get in there, but you can see right around here, there's a rectangular detent right there, across there, and down. And then as I move this, you can see you'll perimeter glue this all the way around the edge, at least to there and to there, and it should tack down nicely. Now, I put a piece of foam right down in there to keep the speed controller centered, because the problem I was having is it just wouldn't stay in the middle. And what I'll do is I'll turn my phone on right here real quick, and I'll get my light on so y'all can see down in there. Just a little chunk of foam down there to keep that thing centered, because it was crooked in there as it went into place. So what I'll do is, again, put some foam tack, perimeter glue the whole thing, get it down you know, into place. And all I did was just sort of make it sort of the way I thought it ought to be. And the way that I made it was just enough space, a square space or rectangular space here, to kind of let the louvers of the speed controller out. And then I decided just use 2 round holes, okay, in the front, just to let further ventilation. And so let me go ahead and glue it in, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. Now this will be a little tricky to do on camera, so I'll do my best, because like I said, this thing's kind of buried in there, a little challenging to get at. So, but what I'm going to do is just perimeter glue this thing so it's bonding, you know, to that foam that's in there. Just go all the way around this thing, and it goes all the way around the front. There's a good area up front that you want to get this thing, you know, attached to, and then of course around the edge. You want to make sure it's pretty secure in place, because again, you know, you got a vacuum duct going on here, so the last thing you want is this thing to go into the engine, you know, pretty much like the old one did. And the old one really got sucked in there pretty darn good. And in fact, I'll show you what it did is this little curved area right here is what got caught on the cone, and that's why it's kind of round shaped. So it didn't harm the fans. Fortunately, it didn't get into the blades or anything, but it you know, it could have got sucked in. So you want to make sure this is glued down pretty darn good. So we're going to get plenty of glue on there. Make sure that's on there, and let's see, we got that all into place right around the edge. There's no reason to glue the back part here, because there's just no foam down there. So the way I'm going to get this in here is very carefully. I'm going to sort of throw this down in there, watching what I'm doing, and then once it's kind of down in place, I'll use some long tools and some pliers and things and whatever I need to do to sort of position it in place. Now after dropping it in place, you can kind of see it down in there. I've got it all kind of lined up in there. You can see it's fitting nicely in there, about as best as I can get it. And that's what's going to sort of spread the glue around in there, and it's all tacked in place. Or it's you know, at least the glue is where it needs to be. It's in position exactly where you want it to be. And then to make foam tack really work, you know, you need to actually take the thing and then just pull it back out actually. So I'm going to reach down in there with a pair of pliers very carefully. I'm going to grip it and very carefully pull it back out. So I'm trying to get it in there so you guys can see what I'm doing. And what will happen is it kind of forms these strings. It gets a little tacky. Now it's hard to do that exactly in there where I'm doing it. But what'll happen is I'll let it tack up right now so it gets nice and sticky, and then I'll reinsert it in there. And you got to be careful, because once you put it down there, now it's going to stay. Okay, so you want to give it about a minute or two, let it get tacky, throw it back in there, carefully get it into position where it's supposed to be, and then once you secure it, it's pretty much going to stay there. Okay, here's a quick look on the inside and how the final gluing went. It went real nice. I used a screwdriver down in here, okay, to push against the perimeter to make sure that all that tacky glue is pressed down. I use this all the way down the sides, and it's tacked really nicely into place. So you can leave this open for a little bit and just keep tacking it down if it comes up, but for the most part, once you let it sit for about a minute or two like we just did, and then place it back down for its final installation, it pretty much tacks into place. Sometimes the Lexan will make it kind of pry up just a little bit, but and then you can just push it back down, and then it tacks down like pretty much permanently. So that's it, folks. We've got our Lexan in place, our speed controller is in place. We have a really nice kind of hole around the louvers to keep it in place and keep it cool at the same time. Now with the glue about dry, you don't really even need to wait for it. We can put the hatch cover back into place, and with all the trimming we did, it fits pretty much perfectly right down in place. And what we'll do is just put our 2 last minute screws back into place. We'll tighten all those babies up, and that'll be it, folks. Now we can kind of focus our attention on the front of the airplane, the battery area, and get everything situated there. As we move on to the front battery area, the biggest deal really here is just widening the strap slots. And you can see that the inner slots were here, 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 and here. Those are the factory ones. And I went ahead and went all the way to the edge of the battery compartment with this one, and this one. And we'll do this one right now so I can show you how easy that is. Now I'll send this all on to the factory so they can hopefully maybe improve this in future floors. But the reason we have to do that is because a 6S pack, generally speaking, will fit between those inner slots. But an 8S pack, which is a single 8 like this one, okay, this thing uses all the battery compartment, and you need to have the straps coming up from the sides, not from underneath the battery. So it ends up being, not wide enough, those strap slots. So if you're going to use an 8S pack, or even here 2 4S packs, like here's 2 5000 Admirals, you're going to want this thing to be a little bit wider, want those straps to come up from the side. So we're just going to go ahead and make those right there, and I'm going to show you real quick how to do it. Now to make a strap slot like that, to widen up your straps, all you really need is a drill bit, and I use pretty much a long one so it's easy to get in there, and a hobby knife as well. So here's how we're going to do that. It's pretty simple, and I'll give you the visual on this so you guys can get the hang of how this is. Now normally I need to keep the drill straight into there, but I'm going to do it in an angle so you all can kind of see what I'm doing here. Is I'm just going to literally mimic, okay, that slot in there by going all the way against the wall here, and then very carefully, and you don't have to drill very fast, just slow, and we're going to drill a hole there, and we're going to end up drilling them all in a line. And what we're going to do is connect the dots with these things. So I'll drill the other one next to it, and so on. We'll just go all the way down the line. And I'm going to do this real time. It takes a little longer for me to do it this way, but at least this way I can show you guys how quick this actually goes and how actually easy it is. I usually do a cleaner job when I'm not doing this on the camera, but I'm going to blow this away. And also, as I'm doing that, you want to think to yourself too, you want to take after you're done with all this, all these particles and stuff in here, high pressure blower, blow all this out to get all that crap out of there. Use even a leaf blower you can blast this out with, but you don't want those particles getting sucked back in the fan later. So once you're done with all this, clean all the particles out with either a vacuum, a blower, leaf blower, or if you got some high pressure air with a compressor, that ultimately would be sort of the best way to go. So again, I'm going to go all the way to the end here. There we go. And again, I'm intentionally doing this at an angle so y'all can see what this looks like. Drilling that through. And then once we've done that, I'm just going to blow that away there. Then I'm going to take my hobby knife, and you want to use a pretty sharp one if you got it. You got a razor knife or whatever you have will work just fine. And now what we're going to do is just connect the dots. So and this makes it much easier to cut through. You could actually cut the entire strap slot with just a hobby knife. It's just a little harder to cut through, to get through all of that. And you know, again, just cleaning it out a little bit, little by little. Another good thing to use is needle files for this. You can get in and really square these up and make them look real nice. And then a couple other tools that you can use, and I'll show you that real quick. But you can see really quickly off the bat, it's starting to look like a pretty nice, strap slot overall. So I'll use, and as I get in here, I'm gonna stick my head down there. Hopefully I don't block you guys. I need to get my head down in there close to really see what I'm doing. And then when I want to square the edges off, I'll just use the end of the hobby knife and go perpendicular to the slot, and that'll square it off actually pretty nice. So I can do the same thing kind of right here, and then let me go this way. There we go. We can square that off in this direction. Yeah, real nice, real nice. That's turning out good. So, but you can see with just a little bit of, you know, work with the hobby knife, a little bit of surgery, nothing major here, you can make a nice square slot out of it. So if you have a ruler, metal ruler, put some sticky back sandpaper on it like this. And again, needle files work real nice too. So, and you can square them off with needle files. But if you just go this way with it, you can see, clean up the wall. You can make these as wide or as long. So if you have a wider strap or a, you know, a wider strap, you can make the slot wider. And just a little bit of, you know, tooling with this. You can see how quick it was. I didn't do any editing on that so y'all could see it. And again, high pressure air to blow, you know, the whole thing out. And there you go, folks. That is it. We now have nice wide slots. You could even put slots up here or here if you wanted to. Maybe here and here if you have a lot of battery, you have many slots. I would normally put some right here, but we can't because it's too thin because of this. And again, I usually do a lot of improvements with FMS, so I'll send this on to the factory so they'll see this battery area and see what maybe in future you know, planes they can make them a little wider. But anyway, that's it, man, for setting this up for a wide battery. Now, per my mode of normal operation here, I went ahead and took a little bit of shelf liner, as you can see here, cut it to fit, use some double-sided Scotch tape on it, and you know, we're going to go ahead and just kind of stick that down. You guys know me, I don't really use too much Velcro if I can kind of get away with it. If you guys want to use Velcro, you can. It is good to use. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, as you guys know, I just prefer to use shelf liner on my batteries just to keep, or so I can keep Velcro off the batteries, I should say. So, and then once we have this all down here, as I usually do with a very sharp hobby knife, we'll go ahead and we'll cut out the holes. You want to kind of keep the holes that are there for cooling, because, and also make sure you're not cutting down, you know, into, you know, any wires down there, which you can clearly see through, and you can kind of push them to the side, you know, before you do all this stuff. But if it's not sticking down, just make sure you push it down around the perimeter of where you're cutting, and you'll get a real nice clean battery floor out of this, and you can kind of keep your cooling holes. So I'm just going to show you one or two of these, and we'll go through there. We'll kind of poke that out of there, and it ends up being a real nice finished tray, finished product when you're done with this thing. I'm going to cut down here. Again, I'm doing these side slots because this is going to probably assist a little bit in battery cooling. So you do want to not block all the holes up, you know, if there's any sort of holes in here, you want to kind of want to go down all of them, and, you know, make sure you got those out of there. So I'll go ahead and finish this up, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. And there's the finished battery floor, all done. A couple other things to note also: satellite receiver is right here. I went ahead and just ran that under the floor. I used a 24-inch extension wire, and when you go to the front, you can see where my other receiver is, the main receiver, and I try to keep that wire straight if I can. It just kind of sticks out there, but otherwise everything is pretty neatly arranged in there. And then we have kind of minimal wire leads, which is kind of nice. So very clean battery compartment floor. I'll put some straps in there, and I may have to make some slightly wider or get some longer straps because we're gonna have a much bigger battery in there. But that's pretty much it, folks. That's the that's how clean and neat, you know, the inside of this airplane is for carrying, you know, an 8S or 2 4S packs. Again, when you're all done, make sure you blow this thing out with some high pressure air so you don't suck all those particles back into the fan. Now, right after putting the shelf liner in position and putting the battery straps in, I did run into one snag that I thought might be a problem, but I didn't realize it till I put the battery straps on, or I didn't really have it happen. And what that is after drilling all these extra slots here, the wood becomes kind of weak here, and the battery was just, as I was tightening the straps, it starts cracking this wood here. So I saturated it with some CA, used some thin CA so it absorbs in there, but additionally, you can see the screws in here, and I left those in position, you know, just so everybody could see what that looks like. What I did was I took a small piece of wood, just like this. This is what this looks like, this screw with this washer. I needed something to glue in a piece of wood behind here to make it tougher. And I used this, which was just big enough or just small enough to fit inside here. And I would slide it in under a position and it would get in just the way you see it here. So it doesn't block the new strap slot, but it does block the old one. And then we can glue it in position down here. So you can see here that the way that this is arranged is the washer basically sliding this under there, putting the screw through the old strap slot, allows me to tighten this up, and this wood actually comes up from underneath and attaches itself. And then once you have it in position right where you like it, just take some CA and then saturate some CA, okay, into these holes, and what it'll do is it'll wick all the way around there with the screw tight, and then just let it dry. And then what happens is all you have to do is back the screw out, as you can see here, and remove the screw in the washer, and what you have now is you have a very nice and a much stronger area here where, you know, this is no longer, shouldn't be weak, and it should be able to support the battery. So I'll get the remaining screws out of here. This whole thing will be flush, and then I'll go ahead and I'll put my my shelf liner back in place, and we should have plenty of strength there. And again, this only happened because I cut all these extra slots in place, and I'll let the factory know that, you know, if we do make you know, new Scorpions, it'd be a good idea to put, you know, wider slots farther out instead of the close ones, because then, you know, it'll accommodate more battery types. The next thing up is making straps to fit, and I like to use these Apex straps, and they make these really nice 400 millimeter ones that are pretty darn long, but they're like too long, and 300 is too short. You need about 350 or so. So I went ahead and cut mine down to make it a little shorter, okay? And I cut mine at this end right here. So about 340 millimeters is like the right size you need, the length of this thing from end to end. And what I do is I'll take a little bit of foam tack after I cut this thing, and I already started this thing kind of going already, but what I'll do is I'll cut this, and I'll put some foam tack, as you can see, kind of right in here, and I'll pull this thing apart and let it get kind of tacky, and then when I'm ready to finally put it together, I'll go ahead and I'll stick it, you know, all the way together, and it'll pretty much stay there. But to back it up, what I'll do is I'll grab a stapler, and I'll actually staple this to make sure it stays in place. Now before the glue dries, you can just staple these in place. All you really have to do is just sort of line up your stapler, you know, just get it sort of as straight as you can, and that looks about right. And we'll put a staple in, and I'll usually do a few of these. I'll continue on down kind of the length of this thing. And so not only do we have the foam tack to kind of keep this in place, but we have staples as well, which pretty much act as stitches, and it actually is a pretty quick and pretty durable way to do it. I do this in such a way, I'll take some pliers after that, and I'll squeeze these down here so these ends aren't sticking out, and then we can just feed these through the slot. Now I've done these a lot before, and like I said, these are really nice straps. I'll change the length of a strap anytime this way, but you need a longer one obviously to go shorter, a little foam tack, little staples. I'll put links to this in the description below to where to get these. I get them over at Amazon as well, so, and I'll show you where that's at. But anyway, anytime you need a custom length strap, that's pretty much how you do it. You can see here the battery straps that are installed in place. Also keep in mind your battery is going to be you know, pretty tight in here, and you have to put the buckle on one end or the other, meaning the plastic part where you're actually tugging on. So and if you put them both of the buckles on one side, meaning here and here, then your battery might tend to be pushed over to one side, okay, because the buckles will sort of push it over. So what I did instead, because it's such a wide battery, I put one of the buckles here, and I put one of the buckles here. That way when the battery goes in, and it is a pretty shallow floor here, so you can have these mostly attached, or, you know, just have your Velcro attached just right at the very, you know, edge of the loop part of the strap. And then this will slide right in, you know, pretty nice, and then pretty much go all the way forward. And then you can reach in there with some forceps because I usually have these with me at the field, I'll grab these and I'll sort of lift them up and pull it up, and then you can tighten your strap that way. And then once you tighten it down, your battery, as you can see, I don't want to tighten it all the way because I'm going to show you some more batteries. It'll be slightly at an angle. In other words, it's not going to be straight and pushed to one side. It'll be kind of catty-cornered. That'll distribute the weight evenly, so you're not putting too much weight on one side of the airplane or the other, so you're not changing out the lateral balance. Now, with a tight fit like this, I usually will have something like a ruler. I usually always have that in my back pocket, so I can use that, as you can see here, to release the Velcro so you can get down in there. Now, just to show you a couple other battery options, this is a Turnigy Nanotech 8S, okay, and I have an 8S charger. It's a honking battery, 65 to 130C 5000. But some other options here, you've got some Roaring Tops. These are 5070Cs, and you can see the two of those together. Those will fit in there pretty nicely, actually, you know, even better, and they're 70C. I'll usually put some shelf liner between my batteries so they're not sliding on each other. So that's another option. Then you've got even these Admiral 6000s, and you can use Admiral, you know, 5000s as well, but even these 6000s will fit in there, you know, fairly decently, and they'll go in there. So, but we'll be flying that and showing you that in the flight demo. This is actually a pretty good combination too. Admiral 5000, a 6S and a 2S pack. That's actually the smallest and lightest combination I've found that actually will fit in there real nicely. Now, keep in mind when you're doing this, you know, you're going to need a series adapter. Okay, so these batteries are running in series. So I went ahead and made one of these, just because I didn't want to change the adapter on the speed controller that's in there from the XT90 that's in there. What I did is I put a spark arrestor on there. So this is one of those special spark arrestors. I'll put links below in the description for that so everybody can check those out. But essentially all you're going to do here is just connect these together like this, and then your final connection can be made, you know, right here when you're ready to go fly. Just plug that in and you'll get no spark. So that's pretty much that. Another thing, I think I had mentioned already, not sure, but you know, again, my satellite receiver I put here, I ran all the way down here below the floor and ran it underneath all this stuff. So we don't have any wires here getting in the way, you know, of the battery and everything. But again, the 8-cell or any 2 4-cell combinations or any 6-cell 2-cell combination, there's a big battery bay, you know, in this airplane that'll fit real nice. So, and again, you can see it angled in there. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can lock this one down real quick. Let me grab this and stick my ruler in between these. Again, I usually have this in my back pocket when I'm at the field anyway, because I'm using this for pretty much all my battery installations, and this allows you to just sort of separate the two Velcros, because when they're that close together down in there, they'll stick as you're trying to pull it up, and you'll never kind of get to be able to do it. So let me grab these. Again, tight fit, guys, but that's kind of what we're expecting because we're sticking an 8S in here. So while it fits, it is tight, but that's okay. And what I'll do is, again, I use my ruler to push that down in there so the Velcro does not make contact. And you can see how nicely that fits. Those Apex straps are real nice. But again, you can see it's at a bit of an angle, again, because I put a buckle here and I put a buckle here rather than putting them both on one side so the battery gets shifted. Because the battery's so heavy, it can change the lateral balance of the airplane, and by just kind of making the battery kind of cockeyed, you kind of equally distribute that load and kind of equal out the lateral balance. So, and that is it, guys. This thing is pretty much ready to go. Last but not least, I decided to put my sticker on this plane and officially authorize this airplane as an official RCINFORMER Ultimate Series airplane. I'm going to line this up with the bottom of the airplane so it runs straight and true, and now it is officially certified. Let's go ahead and get our sticker on there. Let me see if I can pull this back. Hopefully it'll work. Thanks to Carrie Graphics. There we go. And there we go, guys. The first ever, actually second ever 8S powered FMS RCINFORMER Ultimate airplane. Okay, folks, that about sums it up for the 8S upgrade on FMS's 90mm Super Scorpion. This is, again, an upgrade I've wanted to do for a long time. We are going to get it out to the field and fly it ASAP. We're going to have it at the E-Jet Fest International. I'll put that up here so you guys can check out the flyer for that. Hopefully we'll be at it next week, so come check it out, and we'll be doing the maiden of this thing there. So come check that out. Also, the other videos on this airplane running on 6S, I'll put those links up in the upper right hand corner of the screen along with any new videos of this flying. So probably by the time you see this video, we'll have those there for you. This was a super easy upgrade, folks. It was, I knew it would be pretty easy and I wanted to do it for a long time, but all it really is just taking the old fan out, which is awesome. This is such a lightweight, powerful package that they give you stock with this, with the BEC and everything, and I can use this in another airplane or put it back at some point if I want to, but it keeps the airplane really light and powerful. But really all we had to do was, as you can see, just pull the old one out, put the new fan in, and just, there was a little bit of adjustment that I had to make to the foam lip area, okay, on the in the airplane, and then this thing drops right in. Even the bolt pattern is the same. Again, my little plastic piece for my where did I put that thing? There it is. My little plastic piece there for my retainer, which is made out of Lexan or whatever for the ESC. I just made my own because it seemed like it made more sense to get one that fit that speed controller, because that speed controller is a little bit smaller. But I put my own in there, and then all you have to do once you get the fan in is just adjust your battery slots, because the batteries are going to be wider, and you can fly, you know, a whole gambit of batteries from a single 8S like I have in there right now to two 4S packs. And again, these are roaring tops. You know, 5070 Cs with I made my own spark arrestor adapter there. And again, I'll put links for all this stuff down in the description so you guys can see exactly what I use. Even like the Admiral 5000s, you know, if you have a 2-cell that you can put on there, you can run an 8S that way. And this is a nice lightweight package. The only thing I found with this airplane initially when it was brand new as a 6-cell airplane and as an 8-cell now is that is the center of gravity. In fact, putting the batteries in there and putting them as far forward, the battery was, without a flight controller or a flight stabilizer in it, the CG was a bit aft. So I actually put a little bit of nose weight in my airplane flying it on 6S. And I think with the extra battery weight up front, we probably don't need it, except for the fact that that fan weighed a little bit more. So as I did the CG right now, after I did the installation, the CG still crept back a little bit, okay, even with a heavy 8S like it is actually in there right now. So what I did to counterbalance that, and what's nice about this airplane, another awesome feature, is that from the beginning I actually pulled the nose cone off of this plane, and I'll go ahead and zoom this up so everybody can kind of see what that looks like. I'll try to get a little zoom in there for everybody without dropping this off the table, but I'll go ahead and I'll zoom right in there. You can see that nose weight I stuck in there, and that's the beauty about this airplane, is it lets you put plenty of weight up in that nose just by sliding the nose cone off, you know, and then kind of re-gluing it in place. So I only put 2 ounces up front when this plane was flying on 6S, and now that we have that heavier fan in the back, even with the heavier battery, it still needed 2 ounces. So I put 2 ounces of steel weight up nose in the front, and that's how it's been flying actually since day one. So everything, even with the 8S, just sort of, you know, equalized out, which was kind of nice. So anyway, that's the deal there, folks. And you can see this just goes right on. I haven't foam tacked it on yet because I wanted everybody to see how that comes off. But it's such a nice design because with having that that nose cone up there, you can shift the weight in this airplane and do a lot with it, and you have really good adjustability with this thing. They did a nice job, and it's a very good platform, lots of good battery space in there to put stuff in there. So the other feature too with the speed controller, the 120 I put in there from FMS, is it has a reversing feature, just like we saw when I put it in there. So what I did is I actually did plug it in there, and y'all can see that when I add throttle here just a little bit, it's putting thrust out the back, but I push my bind button and it reverses. So we have a reverse feature on this plane, which is really nice. And I do recommend everybody put it on whatever switch you like. But what I suggest doing, and what I always do with reverse thrust, is I will put it on the bind button, because that way you will not accidentally hit that switch in flight and not know why it's in reverse or which switch you flipped. I do the same thing with wheel brakes, because if you have it on a switch, you can accidentally activate the wheel brakes in flight, and you definitely don't want to land with the wheel brakes on. That's a bad thing. I haven't done it yet, but I've heard of people who have, and it's not a pretty sight. So use that bind button for reverse and brakes so you don't accidentally press it, and it works beautifully. So anyway, what else do I have? Separate BEC. One more comment I want to make, guys. I left the factory BEC in this airplane because it seems to work really well. Now, I might go with a separate BEC. I might grab a YEP BEC or something, solder it into the power lines. I'll probably solder it right into the power lines on the airplane on the inside if I go with a separate BEC, but it all depends. I might just leave it in there because it seems to be working okay. But anyway, that's an option, something else that you guys could possibly do. But anyway, that's it, folks. This thing's awesome. We're going to get it out and fly it for you guys real soon. Stay tuned for that video, which, again, once we get it, we will put it in the upper right-hand corner of the screen for you guys to see it. So stay tuned to the channel for that. I'm real impressed. Always been impressed with this airplane. Now we have more power. Even the springs on the gear seem to be acceptable for the additional weight, even though it's not that much. Even though it's not that much heavier, they seem to be, you know, adequate for it. If I find it needs a little more spring, you know, maybe I'll add a little tighter spring or put something in there to tighten up the spring, but it seems like it should be fine. Awesome. And it's always been an awesome grass field jet, and with the extra power, it should be pretty awesome. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to have that for you, and appreciate y'all watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you like the content you're seeing. We're always putting out as much cool stuff as we can for everybody. Hit that like button, of course. Use our links below. We do appreciate that. It supports the channel. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in for this awesome 8-cell upgrade of the Super Scorpion from FMS. Appreciate y'all watching. And as always, folks, we'll see y'all next time.